Okay. I'm Chuck Liddell. I'm at the Avalon Library. It is now April 11th, 2023. It's a little bit after 2, and we are going to have a Q&A, but I want to begin with by telling you what the Easter Sunrise pageant used to be that they haven't done for years. Now, there's a big difference between the pageant and Easter Sunrise service. What they do at a service normally is just music, singing, and praying. The pageant was a complete pageant. In other words, Jesus, the cross, the crucifixion, the ascension into heaven, the whole bit. So when I'm talking about the pageant, I want to make sure you know that we're talking about a big time pageant. Now, our Hispanic population here, I hope I'm using the term right, is 73%. Normally what they do on Palm Sunday, and I don't recall them doing this year, is they usually have a program where they're with palms and Jesus is coming down. And then just before Easter, they have him dragging a cross. I didn't see him do it this year, but that was always sort of a nice way to get us into the true meaning of Easter, rather than the Easter egg hunt and the bunny and all the other stuff. So where the Wrigley Mansion is now, the reason the Wrigley Mansion was put there in 1923 is because, 1921, is because that is where the first sun comes up. That is due east. So the Wrigleys put it there because they wanted to get morning sun. Now, so due east is about like over there, which is all, messed up. And we see the sunrise, we don't see the sunset because of the mountains. Mm-hmm. And so, but we do get, I call a secondary sunset because it reflects off the clouds. Mm-hmm. So you get a beautiful sunset, but it's not a direct sunset. It's just reflecting off of the sun going on the backside of the island. So anyway, that started back in 1899. That was even before there was a road there. Pilgrims would go up the hill just to be able to be there. Now, all they were really doing is just having a service, but they wanted to be there to see the sun come up. So, starting in 1917, they put the cross up. If you've been up there, you've seen the cross. That was there for the Easter sunrise services, the pageant, I should say. You may not be familiar why they have those big reservoirs of water up there. The reason they put them up there is because homes were starting to be built on the hillside, and in case they caught on fire, they would never be able to get enough water pressure from in Avalon to shoot up. So all they'd have to do is siphon out of that. So that's the reason why those reservoirs they're salt water reservoirs. Of course, we've always used salt water in our toilets and other things. So the actual pageant took place in 1934, was the first of them. And at these pageants, they had Jesus, they had Mary, they had the angels, they had the whole shooting match. So the pageant went on until 2001. Then they moved down to Descanso Beach on 2002. All they just have is a service with Janny playing the chimes up, playing for them. And then at the casino, they've been doing it ever since 2016. All the churches just meet there and have an ecumenical service. So the pageant has not been done since 2001, which was 22 years ago. Okay. Margaret Felkley, who was the wife of our minister, told a few of us we'd like to do that. We'd like to do the pageant this year. So she said, "Are there any volunteers?" Well, I'm a bit of a, well, he knows, I'm a bit of a fathead. So
no,
I said,
say that way.
Yeah, I know, you'd be worse. So anyway, I said, what time do we have to be here for makeup? They said at 4:30 for the sunrise service. I said, well, if I'm going to get up that early, I want to play Jesus, which was kind of being flippant, but it turned out I was, because I was the only one that had a beard, and I was the only one at those days, this was during the 1970s, I was actually Jesus's age. So immediately they said, well, of course you're going to be, nobody else has a beard. It was, not white. Nobody else is his age. So this worked out perfect.
Oh my God, wow.
So what they would do is they would have private vehicles, then they later on would bring buses up to the hillside, to just the other side from the Wrigley Mansion. They had lights along the way so you wouldn't kill each other, because don't forget it was pitch dark. So we would have the pageant. Now, I was reminded by my parents that when I was about 2 years old, I went to my first pageant. That would have been about 1949. The archangel came out all dressed in these beautiful robes, and she put out her hand and said, "Hark!" And I waved back and said, "Hi!" So loud that it just completely destroyed the pageant for a while. I mean, this "Hi!" waving to the angel, which was not the script. So anyway. Okay,
But perfect.
So this is the way it went. We started over at the cross. It was a balsa wood cross. Unfortunately, to make me look like it was heavier, we had two people. I can't remember. Blackie Chatan and Kirk Cameron were the two guards that were guarding me. So Blackie Chatan was actually really hitting me with ropes. And I kept saying, "You don't have," he said, "I want it to look real." I said, "It's real all right. It hurts." And then Kurt Cameron, who's still alive, would put weight on the cross, because 3 times I'm supposed to have fallen carrying the cross. Well, I said, I can fall on my own, but he had to push me down, so I literally landed right in the mud. I mean, not mud, but in the dirt.
Sorry.
Okay. Are you here for the lecture?
We're taking movies.
Oh, okay.
Some movies.
So, anyway, so it was very realistic. Of course, I kept mumbling. I said, you don't have to make it look that real. It's still dark. They don't really see too much. Okay. They did not put me up on a cross. Now, I do understand in some countries, they literally do it. They actually put nails in the hands of the participants. I mean, they take it that seriously. Luckily, this one, they just took me up. Now, as you look down, if you're going down into where that was all happening, you see what looks kind of like a crypt or well, that's what they built in I don't have it down. Well, a few years later, that became the crypt. So what I did is I took the cross to that point. But before that happened, I had to meet with Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate was Frank Cotter, who had very dark skin, but he also had eye problems, so he's wearing dark glasses, and he's bald. Okay, so Kurt Cameron and Blackie Chatan would first take me to him, and then he would wash his hands of the whole thing, and then we start the cross. Well, all the time he was sitting there, he was telling the dirtiest jokes I have ever heard in my life. And I'm trying to keep a straight face. After all, I'm Jesus. And I kept saying, "Frank, cut out the dirty jokes." And of course, that made me even do more. So I just kept biting my tongue. I can't break out laughing. I'm being condemned. Okay, so anyway, I take the cross up to the crypt. I then go inside, and there's people in there to remove my cotton outfit and put on silk. Okay, because now I've ascended into heaven. The ascending into heaven was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm afraid of heights. Okay, so from the crypt up to the wall, they had a 2x4. And I had to, with my hands extended, they had little little cups here so I could do like this. So I had to go up backwards on this 2x4 at quite an angle for about 10 feet. And I'm trying to, look heavenly all the time. I keep praying to God. I said, God, do me a favor. If I fall off, give me the opportunity to crawl back on again. I don't want to ascend into hell twice. In other words, I want to keep it real. So anyway, as I'm going up, I'm going backwards like this. And I am not making it up at all. Every time they started singing, Christ the Lord has risen today, seriously, I always felt the sun on this finger. And by the time I was done, I was completely ablaze. Nobody ever took a picture. I think it was too solemn to do, so I never knew, but everybody in the, oh, look at that, he's on fire. And I said, really? Really? Okay. And so that's how we did it. And then I got off the plank when it's done, and when it hit, and then everybody left. So that's how we used to do the sunrise service or pageant. And I really think it was really neat. It's just because you got into the real feeling, and it was at that location, which was nice. So do you have any questions about that before Paul turns off, if he hasn't already turned it off?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay, that's pretty much my thing about the pageant. So
how many years did the pageant last? Did you do with that pageant?
Me?
No, as a spectacle.
From 1934 to 2001.
Wow, that's an event for here.
It's been 22 years since they've had the pageant. In 2002, they went down to Descanso Beach, and then they were there until 2016. Now they go down to the Casino Point.
Who?
Did they stop?
Well, how many people want to get up at 4:30?
Fair.
Well, okay, I'm being very serious with you. Nobody ever said why, but I think it had a lot to do with insurance possibilities. Because people walking there in the dark, even with flashlights, they have all these steps. I frankly just think the island company just basically said, we've never had an accident, but why take a chance? So that's my take.
And they could have just moved it an hour or two.
What?
They could have just moved it an hour or two and done it.
Sunrise.
Well, yeah, sort of.
No, that was a big deal. The sun, on my silk. If I didn't get that, it would have looked. The point is that was the culmination of the pageant, was to see me on blaze as I now ascended to heaven on a 2x4 plank.
Did any other local VIPs play Jesus, or who? What famous folks?
Well, no famous. They were all locals.
Yeah, but local famous.
After my 3 years, I decided to sleep in. So I never went to another one, but I know they have them in the newspapers, because every issue for the newspaper goes back to 1904. 1904. So I know that if you wanted to, you could go to the museum, take out the one around Easter time, and they'll give the whole cast of characters.
That's cool.
So if you want to know. But anyway, so that's the story of our pageant. So let me ask you two a question, because I'm trying to figure out what the next topic is going to be. Do either of you remember the TV show Leave It to Beaver? Okay, that kills that one.
Well,
okay.
I do, but...
I know. The reason
No.
is because I got to know Tony Dow, who just died a few months ago, who played on Leave It to Beaver, but I was going to tell about my involvement with a lot of celebrities here.
I'd love to hear that.
But again, if it's not anyone that you know, it's
I
sort of a
know.
waste of...
I know who Tony Dow is.
Well, okay, but you're...
I'm here.
Okay.
I say go for it.
Yeah, and then Barbara Billingsley, Mrs. Cleaver, Mrs. Cunningham from Happy Days, I got to know, John Wayne, Martha, or I can't think. Oh, I hosted Barbara Streisand up at the country club, so I spent a good time with her. So anyway, it was just that sort of a
Are all
of
these
a thing.
people like local to Catalina, or do they just come to know?
Well, you don't know Barbara Streisand?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's kind of a biggie. That's kind of a biggie. So if you don't know Barbara Streisand, the rest of them aren't. Yeah, these are all celebrities from the mainland who either brought their boats over, like John Wayne did for 50 years. You know who John Wayne is?
Yes.
Good, thank you. He had a converted minesweeper called the Wild Goose, and he lived in the Newport area. And so he came over here every year for 50 years until he finally got stomach cancer and then died in 1979. But he used to come here before the Wrigleys, when the Baddies still had it. And he told me that when he was, in fact, he told me that do you know who Howard Hughes was? Have you heard of the Spruce Goose?
Big millionaire back in the day. Billionaire.
Okay, well anyway, he and Howard Hughes were in the casino for the grand opening in 1929. So again, a lot of them have a lot of wonderful connections with it. So I think I'll have to,
10 seconds.
okay, I was just going to say, I think I'll come up with another topic then. So in case you're here, I want it to be something that you could relate to.
I think
So I'll come up with something else. Okay?